Right, today, I don't know. It is crazy. It's like 35 degrees out there. I'm gonna die tomorrow in the heat. So I checked on my chickens. All my chickens, like, are looking at me like this in the chicken coop. They got water still, so uh, gotta water them a couple of times a day when it's this hot. There's 34, well, 35, 33 birds, I think, I got left. So, and yeah, I'm gonna be putting them down. So I attempted to make a video, and it went an hour and a half, guys. So I was following, but then I realized I thought I was deleting everything properly on this camera, but I wasn't. So I could probably get longer on the videos. So I'm gonna do the video over again. It is very hot out there. My poor pa and my brother-in-law, or my brother and my sister-in-law, had to go to town for my brother to meet up with her mom because she's hasn't been around for a long time and gonna visit, right? So, but like, what a day to have to do that. Because we were gonna kill the chickens this weekend, but I was like, no, too hot and whatever. And then, okay, check out my hat. It's so awkward. Oh, that's hard. But at least it's online. Yeah, so check out my hat. All right, so I made this video already today, and I figured not too bad on it, but I kind of ranted and rumbled. Like me, I know, ranting, I know, like in tangents, like me. Yeah, I know. Um, so I figured I'll do a take two. So I want to get more solution based. And the video in question is going to be about, gotta say it properly, like the female loneliness epidemic and the male loneliness epidemic. And does it affect you? Dun, 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 plot tickets. All right. And how we can go about it and whatever, and why it's not necessarily a horrible thing. It's horrible for individuals for sure, but overall, it's not really the bad thing that we think it is. In some ways, there is some benefits. It's kind of dystopic, the benefits. And the benefits would be that the people that are most neurotic, most hardest to be pleased, the hardest to be the most picky, can't find anybody, right? And the upside to that is that the narcissistic traits, when they die out, the narcissistic traits are going to be more likely to go with them, right? So we might have less of that in society. But how did we get here? And if you listen to, I'm not a partisan type guy. I'm in the sense of, cheerlead for one side and then just boo the other side. Like, and I hate that. I really do hate that. Even when it's my side, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't want to hear, roses and puppy dogs from my side when there's problems. You know what I mean? You got to address your own. You know what I mean? And hold to account. But also, there's other people that all they do is hold our to account. They don't hold the other side to account. They dismiss it. And I don't like that either. And I don't like the other side. You know what I mean? I just don't like them because they stand against everything I stand for. But there's an upside to the radical left, and that is that they don't breed. So that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. So we really, like the idea of, you got these people that they don't want to breed, like the MGTOWs. They just want to step out of society, right? They made some good observations, but I will pick on them a bit because, like, their conclusions are wrong. Oh, we're just going to step out of society and that'll fix the problem, so to speak. Because I don't care, blah blah. Okay, fine, you go over there and just don't care. This video's not for you. Those type of people, they're not helping. They're not helping. Feminists are the other side of the coin to that, obviously. Well, would say the MGTOW is the other side of the coin to feminism. And which flavor of feminism, it doesn't really matter. First wave, second wave, third wave, and now fourth wave. I say fourth wave is kind of like the death of feminism, and we're sort of seeing it. It's just people are in desperation. They don't know the normal people in the middle that are not hyper neurotic, incels or incelettes for the females. which are becoming a thing because it's just like men aren't approaching them. Why? Because of the Me Too thing. Like guys are scared, and I understand that part of it, but that all comes from the only reason why we have feminism is because men have allowed it. That's it. And any woman, whether she's a conservative or a liberal or whatever, that says she's a feminist is not a conservative. Number one, you have to be family, nation, future. The thing is, I think it's misguided what they think feminism is to the point where they think, well, it's just about equality and blah 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 and stuff like. And that's not. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing, right? It's not family, nation, future. Definitely, equality is kind of an unachievable thing. Yes, if you're talking about uh, equal pay for equal work, almost everybody is like, yeah, sure, whatever, but you got to do the equal work. You can't just be, well, I'm trying my best. No, well, are you good enough or not? Like, I mean, if you want to compete with men, you have to compete with men. And men, they're very cutthroat in that sense. It's a very hostile world to be a man. A lot of women have no clue of this, right? They don't realize how the society is kind of set up for them. The thing is, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Having a society set up for women and children and families is not a bad thing. The problem is the feminist thing started off as it's the cult of Lilith is first wave feminism. I've covered it many times, and if you're not aware of that, like everything that like the whole goal was to undermine the family from day one. It's not about helping women. It's about undermining the family. It's the cult of Lilith, right? Which goes back to biblical times. And the arguably first wife of Adam was Lilith, right? Oh, I thought it was just Adam and Eve. Well, there's other books. There's other books that contradict that. And Bible stories are very, very interesting because I think Lilith basically embodies the spirit of the third and fourth wave feminist, in her description. And you can say, okay, well, that was the goal all along. So, like the suffragettes weren't for women's equality; they just hated men. And they might not have been completely anti-child at that moment because of the times they lived in. Family, a heterosexual family was a lot more acceptable. So they probably weren't fully aware that the religion that they had just taken on, called feminism, MGTOW's a religion. Feminism is a religion. Everything gets turned into a religion with human beings. It's I think it's just our human nature that does this. In the MGTOW, yeah, they get super defensive, but I don't care. It's like they're not helping. We don't need them. Go do your thing. Go be the Sigma male over there somewhere. You darn Sigma males, whatever. Go do that thing. Let the other people get on with their lives. Now, what about the people that are not feminists, not Sigma male MGTOWs? They're not incels. They're not hyperbolic about their partner and what they, unrealistic about their expectations and stuff like that. These are the people that I'm more, center line people that it's like, okay, yes, there's problems with feminism. And, a 2-year-old can figure that out, right? But it's not every woman, like all these black-pilled people, all they focus on is like online stuff, right? And yes, if you want to find the worst examples of humanity, just look online. You'll find it in spades. Like, you never hear about the good stuff because why? Well, controversy sells, right? You don't hear about the good stuff because it's simply the good people always get left in the dust. You know what I mean? Not the nice guy I'm talking about. I just saw like normal people that just aren't messed up in the head. You just don't hear about them because they're off doing something else. Pearl from Pearly Things, she said something. Now she's very black pilled, right, on marriage and stuff like that, and women nature and all that. But she said something that there was such a hint of truth there that she probably understands it but doesn't understand it fully. That not everybody was meant to breed and survive that way. Nature never intended every animal to survive, right? That's why we have natural selection. Problem is we're the only animals that have made it so easy to survive that we're dragging along, the drug addicts, the mentally ill, all the riffraff that no matter what kind of lifestyle you could give them, they would always divert to that anyway. Like there's some people you give them millions of dollars and they still turn into drug addicts. Other people's don't. They just build empires instead, right? Uh, um, so it's not. It's one of those things that when you really kind of like pull back the throttles a bit and kind of take a look at it all, and say, "Oh, okay, I get it." It's not. It's a certain type of person that is born with what I call the suicide gene. But she said something interesting. Happy people marry happy people, and those are the ones that have the successful marriages and relationships and what have you. And I'm like, that's a pretty nail on the head assessment. It really is. So, even if you were to ail every problem of the feminism in the gynocentric society that we find ourselves in, even if you took that all away and made it all like what I promote, family, nation, future. That's why you can't be a feminist if you're a female. If you're a feminist, you're not for the family. You got to put the family first, not the, and it's not just women. Men have to do that too. You know what I mean? Is it easy? It's not easy, but those who will prioritize, and income levels almost don't matter. They almost don't matter. Third worlders have like 15 kids. They got no money at all. Because their strategy is just pop out kids and our people will survive. That's it. Everything else doesn't really matter to them. So no, it's because of low IQ, but is it? It's a survival. They're survivalists. That's what they are. It's when you become really comfortable with modernity is where you lose the survivalism, and that's where you get the high IQ people that don't breed and stuff like that, which is the people you do want to breed, right? But then again, when you really think about it, if everybody's just a brainiac, nobody will get anything done. Like we already have a society that's full of jobs that are really useless. Like so many office government jobs are just completely useless. They're make work programs, right? The overabundance retail and fast food stuff, most of it we can do without. Things we can't do without is like engineers and people who build society, farmers, people who feed society. You can't do without them. You can say what you want about the farmers, and you get. I always found it mind blowing when I go to the city and I hear people talk bad about farmers while they're eating their lunch. I'm like, you do realize where that came from, right? I bought it at the store. Yeah. But where did the store get it from? I don't know. Yeah, the people that you're calling stupid that have to have enough intelligence to keep the crops growing, right? So they can feed your dumb ass. You know what I mean? And intellectuals aren't always the smartest. Einstein, for example, saying that feeding livestock was a waste of energy because everybody should just be a vegetarian. I'm like, surely this man grew up in a time where he must have interacted with farming at some point, farmers in some way, understanding that, okay, yeah, you're vegetarian or vegan diet if you're going to be going down those routes. Yeah. Where do you get the food? Same place that the people who are eating meat get from. And how do they grow all that vegetables? Well, they need livestock to create manure so they have fertilizer, right? It's, like you should be able to figure this out. That no, you need livestock to keep a farm running. If you don't eat the livestock, that's fine. But I mean, you still need the livestock. You have to grow food for the livestock as well. But that's how short-sighted modernity is. It's, it will put technical progress above practicality almost every time because we always think we can beat nature. We always think we can get way ahead of it, right? And rather than picking on what's wrong with, females in society, I don't need to go through that too much because you already know. What's wrong with men in society, I don't need to go with that too much because you already know. Like, guys are playing way too many video games and smoking too much dope, not producing them. Well, why would I? Because of the gynocentric society. Okay, fine. Don't do anything for yourself. Yeah, don't do anything positive for anybody else. Just don't. Get out of the conversation. But for the people that want to do something, well, they are sort of doing something. They just don't know how to go about it. So, For example, you've seen the return to the land thing. That is something I said was going to happen, whether you like it, whether you don't like it. Everybody's calling it racist, big, whatever. No, that's survivalism kicking in. Whether you think it's good, bad is not the issue. It's these people like if we don't do this, we're not going to have a future. Our people are not going to have a future. It's survivalism, right? Is it perfect? Probably not. Is it going to be mostly guys? Probably, as most new movements are. But it's based upon bringing sound women with it, and they seem to be doing that. Okay, so those people, I have no problem with those people at all because it's like in the future, whether you like their ideology, whether you think they're racist, bigots, whatever, doesn't really matter to me because it's like, well, those people and their kids are going to have a very family nation future mindset the same way the third worlders do. The only difference is they're probably going to manage the child rearing to something they can actually manage, right? But they're starting to build a society that builds a family friendly unit, not a hyper individualistic unit. Everybody said we need to go back to the nuclear family. No, that was already the death of it. We need to go back to the extended family, not the nuclear family. Extended family is where you get really strong communities. Now, when you say the term extended family, I'm not talking about having 20 people and 5 generations living under one roof. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you're in a situation like me where everybody that lives around me is a relative, whatever. And beside that is a bunch of people, almost everybody around them is their relatives and stuff like that. And these communities, they tend to bond a lot easier. And you tend to see a lot more desire, I guess you would say, to the norm, to nature, to whatever, rather than just hyperbolics of how everything is doom all the time. And which is fun. Yeah, the doom stuff is fun. I'm not gonna lie to you, I love the doom stuff too. Everybody, whatever. But it's just like it's not practical. It's not practical. Like depression is not practical. Drug addicts are not practical. Billionaires are not practical. These are not practical people. And you'd say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, it's simple. If it can't naturally perpetuate itself, it's not natural, right? The billionaires are predominantly an investor class, right? Which is built on, cheap labor and stuff like that. And it's not sustainable. Cheapest stuff from the lowest bidder for everyday low prices. This is like, we can blame the migrants for coming in and stealing jobs and stuff like that. Sure. But what set up that? Well, I'll tell you what, cheapest stuff from the lowest bidder for everyday low prices. Globalism has basically brought the wages down so low that people have a hard time starting families and stuff like that. When the wages go up, families are going to go up. Why? Because it's about resources. But until that time, people are going to have to be resourceful, which doesn't necessarily mean money. Money helps. But the biggest hurdle they got to get over for this loneliness epidemic thing is the fact that they have to realize reality. That, this, I'm going to find somebody so perfect for me. Here's the bullet points of what they have to be. You're never going to find that person. That person doesn't exist. Everybody has their flaws and binds vice. What you have to do is find a person that is acceptable enough, right, that you can grow with, right? That's where the successful relationships are. And I'm not going to focus on the unsuccessful relationships because what's the point? We already know they failed. But why did they fail? Well, there's a whole bunch of pie charts of why relationships fails, and there's a lot of common themes. A lot of people put a lot of emphasis on money, the money being the main reason why people fail. I don't think that's correct. I think that's a very small reason why people fail. Just out of observation, how many people I know that are like dirt poor, working class poor? They've got families, they've got kids, whatever, and they always got smiles on their face. Yeah, I'm sure they got a bunch of bills that are past due, but it doesn't seem to faze them. That's not what's really important. It's just, okay, well, that's just part of that struggle is just part of life, right? And they're fulfilled in other ways. Why? Because they have loving family, they have loving community. That is the only way back to the healthiness. It's kind of like all these people chasing happiness. I've already made a video on why you're an idiot if you're chasing happiness, because happiness is not a destination; it's a byproduct of fulfillment, right? So if you look at it like that, you'll understand why all these people that are always in these constant self improvement things, which is a big cope. Like, I'm not saying don't try to do self improvement. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is when they make that their lifestyle, when that's the self improvement is always this next great thing. And we're going to talk about trendy people, right? MGTOW trendy people. They're a cult. The same way the feminists are cults. They're two sides of the same coin. And the thing is they're very enticing on a lot of people, but a lot of people come to the conclusion that there's something wrong with their conclusions, that men stepping away from society doesn't even actually help men. Oh, well, I get all my resources for myself. Yeah, but look at the cost of living. You know, the only men that really stabilize society are married men and married women. They're the only people that really stabilize society. If you don't have a lot of married people, you have a lot of riffraff. You have too many single men, you're going to get revolutions. It's well documented. If you don't have enough men and there's not enough women in a society, the men become very warlike. You see this all over the world, particularly in third world countries, where you got all these roaming gangs of guys that just go around killing everybody because they got nothing better to do, right? There's no wife, there's no kid, there's no wife beating them in the back with a rolling pin. You ain't going out crusading today or pillaging today. Get back. You got chores to do. Go take a little, carry a little Ahmed or something. You know what I mean? And where if it's the other way around, where there are countries where there's more more women than men, some of the Eastern European countries, some places like that, and you'd say, well, then it must be more peaceful. It usually less revolutionary, but the societal decay of engineering kicks in. Why? Because your engineers are like men built society. That's always been the way it is. You can call me sexist if you want, but I mean, go to a construction site, you see 4 women picking up 2x4s and men, pouring concrete. You know what I mean? Like, who's doing what, right? You get the odd woman that's a good construction worker, credit worker, but it's just like 1 in 1,000. Like she's the outlier. She's the exception to the rule. Like, I'm not one of those guys that women can't do it. Like, I've seen women framing with nail guns running along the top beam and stuff like. But it's like, you have to understand, this girl's like very fit, very athletic, and capable, and probably grew up with like 4 brothers or something that were in construction. Like, so she's the exception to the rule, that she just grew up around it, and to her it's like fish and water. You know what I mean? But she's like, you're going to find like 2 women like that in your life. You know what I mean? It just men built society, period. Women do other things. I think women glue society together. And there's a lot of men that just dismiss women as completely incompetent and everything, that only men can do this. Men can do a lot of things. Like, men can build the home, but women make it a home. We're wired differently. Women look, more inward. We know that. Men tend to look more outward. That's why women tend to follow trends a little bit more than men, but men are just as bad for following trends. And I'm going to bring up, and it just translates through time. It's human nature for men and women to do these things. And the trend right now is black pill, right? On both sides. And then we wonder why everybody's depressed. They just constantly, like, if you want to see something really sweet and endearing, okay, whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter who watches this, it will warm your heart. You have a pregnant lady, right? And it's a trend that went viral or whatever. And I saw it the other night. I was like, oh, it's one of these things, right? And the husband or whatever boyfriend comes up behind the pregnant woman and lifts the belly, and you just see the woman go, oh. It's like, because you're lifting up like 10, 15 pounds on this poor girl, right? And it's just like, they almost start crying because they're so, like, it's such a sweet gesture, right? And it's just like, that's that's what life is about. Like that's what partnership is. It looks like it's not always pretty, but it looks stuff like that. And you can find those videos. They're a dime a dozen. It's just I think Hypocrite made a good point on something there the other night that everybody's always saying, oh, there's too much smut on TV, and you're correct. There is too much smut on TV. But we need more wholesome TV programming. And he goes, the problem is the wholesome stuff is already there. You can go watch Leave It to Beaver, Little House on the Prairie, Michael Landon stuff. I used to watch that as a kid. You want to watch Bible stories? You can never watch another program again in your life and just YouTube Bible stories. I mean, it's great. I like it just because I find it fascinating. I love mythology, Bible stuff, whatever. I love I watched the story of Daniel last night. It was great. What a fantastic story. You know what I mean? I love I watched a video on Azrael, and how that what a crazy archangel. You know what I mean? Maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but you can find that wholesome stuff out there. You can find any story of Jesus you want, any story of Muhammad you want, any story of Buddha you want. You can find every episode of Little House on the Prairie if you want it. People would rather watch the smut, like Breaking Bad or whatever's on there now. You know what I mean? Like, people watch that kind of stuff because they like it. It's a guilty pleasure. So it's not that it's not available, right? So you start thinking about, okay, something as simple as just changing the channel to something more wholesome that people don't do. And they watch Doom stuff. Don't get me wrong, I love the Doom stuff. I love Mad Max movies. I think they're just fucking great. Because every Mad Max vehicle you've seen in every Mad Max movie, without exception, I've had a vehicle that probably has some of those features. Like the leaky gasoline or the door that flies open. So I can relate to the Mad Max. I love it. The only thing I never had was the big fucking turbocharger that somehow you could switch on and switch off. That thing was cool. Yeah. Like to know how they hooked it up. Yeah. It's like, oh, you could turn it on. The big blower, you could turn it on, turn it off. Oh, geez, cool. I've never seen a car like that before. What? The future that was built. Those movies were based upon like 2023 or something like that. Around like this time. It's like, okay, they were probably a little bit early, but I think we're on the timeline for Mad Max, right? But anyway, I kid. But what I'm getting at is that, like, all these women now that are lonely because, well, the Me Too thing, yeah, that really hammered, especially the young, like the Gen Z and stuff. Like they're just terrified to talk to a woman because, like there's so many women that, especially with everything being online, like the gym girls, like. Gyms are losing business because of the gym girls going and, filming themselves and just, oh, this guy's looking at me. Oh, you know what I mean? Like that, just the attention whore type stuff, right? To the point where there's some gyms will not allow, like videoing yourself, male or female. No, you're here to work out. That's it. And that's probably the best thing to do. Save them from themselves. If people can't spend 5 minutes doing something without their phone, you know what I mean? Like it tells you a big problem we have. We're way too connected on the internet. We're way too disconnected with the internet. You know what I mean? Like when I was a kid, everything was a social event. I'll get into that, but I want to talk about like trendiness. Okay, what you're seeing with the loneliness epidemic is the modernity trend. It really is. It's the hyper individualistic. Male and females that are, only focused on their well-being in this. And it got, like I say, you got to be focused on your, like taking care of yourself and stuff. I get all that. But the thing is the voices, when people are down, like the whisperers are there. You know what I mean? Like your MGTOWs and your feminists. The reason why you're lonely is because of these evil men over there for the girls. And the reason why you're alone is because, no woman can be trusted or whatever. And it's like, it's not true. It's just not true. That's the whole thing. Oh, no. Well, I got stats that show. Yeah, you got stats that show there's a lot of shitty human beings out there. I'm not gonna debate that with you. You know, that's correct. Everybody notices that. But what I'm also saying, there's a lot of good people out there that know how to get it right, and nobody focuses on the people that seem to get it right. How do they do it? Well, I think it's something like what Pearlie said: happy people marry happy people, and they're going to stay happy. You know, so then that asks the question about all the other nonsense. Well, how come happy people can get together? And by happy, I mean they're fulfilled to the point where they're content, which creates the happiness. So they're not just, I'm happy for the sake of happy. No, that's a crazy person. You know what I mean? No, they're happy because they're comfortable. And comfortability, if it's a positive comfortability versus a negative comfortability. And this is where trends come in. Okay, and I'm going to take you back to, say, the 1930s, because this makes sense. Men compete in different ways. Okay, so when it comes to a job, think like an oil rigger. Okay, you got a couple of guys and they got to jam pipes into the freaking ground, right? And I remember talking to a bunch of oil workers a few times, and it goes, yeah, your first day on the job, you grab this pipe, and it's like it's the heaviest thing you've ever picked up. Like, oh my God, that's heavy. Then you go pick up the next one. Oh fuck, it's even heavier. You know what I mean? But then you get going with it, okay, and then you got three guys, and they can drive those pipes into the well as fast as possible, right? And then it's like this team is really good, and then you got another team that's competing with them, and it gets very competitive. It can get to the point of, you know, like you have to understand, like, okay, you can only do what you can do, and you got to kind of slow down. That's why right now one of the highest problems we have with suicides and drug addiction is in the trades, because it's all these guys, like these roofer guys. They're all drug addicts. All the roofer guys are drug addicts. I don't know almost any roofer that's not a drug addict, you know, doing speed or whatever they're doing. They work 16-hour days in the scorching heat, you know, and 9 days a week, you know what I mean? And then, you know, they think they can do this forever and a day. They can't. So then they start getting the pick-me-ups, and then next thing you know, they're drug addicts, right? All kinds of problems there. So it is a big problem in the trades, but it's not in every trade. Like, for example, you go to the bush, the guys in the bush, they're sober. Why? Because they fuck up, they die really quick. I mean, I'm not saying the roofer guys can't die really quick. I mean, you go off a second, third story, you know, house, you know, it's not, you're not gonna like that. You know, it's not gonna be good for you. But what I'm saying is, some trades tend to do that. The electricians, they're always full of spark. See what he did there? Yeah, like but the trades do tend to get guys that are, you know, they're trying to compete for the money, right? And you get it in the oil work, in military and law enforcement, drug alcoholics. They're all fucking alcoholics. You know, like it's a big problem in the militaries. Pick a military. It's not just one military. Like I get it. You get a bunch of guys that are sitting around bored, you know, on their day off. What do? They drink, right? I understand that. But the mindset, it's the mindset that gets there, you know. You've got all these depressed guys that join the military, and all they do is smoke weed, and you know, and then they say they have PTSD. I'm like, no, you don't have PTSD. You're a drug addict. You know what I mean? You're an alcoholic. That's your fucking problem. Get rid of the drugs, alcohol, the marijuana, particularly. That stuff was I used to be pro marijuana, whatever. I never did it. It wasn't my thing. Like, I've tried it, but you know, like I don't like the smell of rotten skunk cigars. You know what I mean? So I never got into it. And cigarettes, same thing. I was like, I don't know how anybody can fucking afford to smoke cigarettes, right? But it was just like, I've seen what happened to people when they quit the marijuana, and it's like 6 months later they're a completely different person. It's not one person I've seen this happen to. It's every person I've seen quit marijuana. Their life picks up. You know, it's like there's a trend. You know, oh, but it's it. No, it's drugs are drugs are drugs are drug. If you don't need it, don't take it. That's, you do you, but that's what's making you depressed. You know, you're you know, like every marijuana guy's like, I smoke, I gotta smoke a split. I can't just deal with the shit of the world. You know, like I just can't deal with this shit. You know, and it's like, okay, what are you talking about? Like, what's so miserable for you? You know, you woke up at 9:30, and you know the world's like, how's the fucking world bringing you down at 9:30 in the morning? You know what I mean? Like what's going on? Like you didn't do anything yet. Like you know, you're fucking lighting up. Like, what the fuck's the matter? Slap yourself. Like, just give it up. Once you get that shit out of your system, you won't have the anxiety. Oh, I take it for my anxiety. Okay, here's the thing. You know why you're getting the anxiety? You smoke your spliff. A couple hours later, you start feeling anxious again. You know that's called withdrawals. It's called withdrawals. You're going through withdrawals. You don't have anxiety. You have withdrawals. And yeah, it takes a long time to get that out of your system. It'll take you probably about 6 months. Once it is, some of your panic attacks stop. You're not stressed out and overwhelmed that two people talk to you at the same time. Again, I know enough potheads. I know what it does to them, right? And the fentanyl guys, well, your days are numbered. So the thing is these people, okay, it comes back to like the trend of the TV shows or the trend of wearing a suit versus whatever. Okay, you will compete. So you don't have to do the drugs. They're there. It doesn't matter if they're there if you don't want to do them. You know what I mean? That's the whole kicker. You say, well, it's just about libertarian choice. No, it's not. Some people need to be policed a bit. You know what I mean? I'm not a complete authoritarian, but legalizing marijuana in our country has created such depression levels. Just look at it from 2016 on. Look at the depression levels. They're just fucking, it hasn't helped. The liberals have always advocated for the most toxic thing. When your government is selling you the marijuana, and your government does everything that's pretty much toxic to you, but yet you're going to go and say, yeah, marijuana is a good thing. Okay, this is my rant for the day, for this video. Can you see where I'm going with this? You don't trust them on anything. You don't trust they landed on the moon. You don't think the earth is round. Okay, you think everything is a conspiracy. The thing that shall remain nameless, you think that, that's bad, which stats show that it is. Okay, you got all that, but the marijuana that they're selling you is good. you know what I mean? Like, but I got a private supplier. It's the same fucking strain. Like it's all bad. That's what's holding you back, and it is. That's my rant for the guys for today. For women, okay, same thing. Don't do it. You'll be just as depressed. Drugs and alcohol are not the answer, but it's available, and most of the people that are black-pilled and depressed, they tend to be in that, and again, I'm not a hypocrite. I've drank my body weight many times when I was 20, but I also got to a point where it's like I started really realizing that you can't just be drunk all the time. You know what I mean? Like you never win with it. Like, it's like, I'm going to go out to the bars and I'm going to have a couple of beers and, meet a couple of hot chicks, and I'm going to meet the woman, and we're going to whatever, and you just basically stagger home at 4 a.m. or 7 a.m, completely shit faced, and you've accomplished nothing. You're lucky if you even remember the night before, and then your friends tell you how much of an ass you were. Who won, right? So you eventually have to grow out of that, right? There's more to life than just getting fucking messed up all the time, and I understand it's because it's so hard to socialize for a lot of people, but it's complicated people, or people making things complicated more than they need to be. Like, it's not hard to socialize with people. You just have to, have a few basic things going for you. And that is, you have to be outgoing, know how to start small talk, and how to kind of read people a bit. Yes, you're going to, I could pretty much talk to anybody, doesn't matter what walk of life they are. I'm one of those people that can just kind of, I'm not trying to be everybody's best friend. I'm just, I'm courteous, right? Whatever. And if I run into a woman and you talk to her and she has that ick factor or whatever, that fine, thanks. I know enough about you now that, okay, I'm not going to waste my time with you. You know what I mean? But you should give that person a chance. Why would I waste my time with somebody who doesn't have decency? You know what I mean? Doesn't have, and it doesn't mean everybody that's nice to you is a great person. Some people are very fucking manipulative and stuff like that. But you got to vet people. And the more people you talk to, the easier it is to learn how to vet people. You start to just subconsciously notice. It's kind of like how the cop always kind of knows when you're bullshitting. You know what I mean? You deal with the first person, he gives you the sob story, and you believe it. And then you've heard that sob story like the same way 10 times in a row in that day. And it's like, okay, somebody's fucking lying to me. I know it. You know what I mean? And that's what happens. You get, like, if you go customer service long enough and you apply yourself, you'd be surprised how easy it is to learn how to communicate with people. And it's like, it gives you a lot of ability of how to kind of kill them with kindness and disarm people so that you can actually have a conversation or whatever. I learned that working 7.5 years of retail, dealing with probably about 1.5 million people, give or take. Like it's amazing how, like, not quality time with every person, but like I've dealt with a lot of people in the public square, and I'm just like, yeah, this guy, I see him coming in. He's, he looks like he's mad. He's about to yell at somebody, and know how to defuse them like in 2 seconds. Now, kitty cats, I'm still working on. What, kitty cat? I know it's hot out there. Don't you meow one more time, or this is my cat smashing hand. You hear me? Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay. Scratch everything I said. Kitty cats are. Anyway. Okay. Yeah, I know. Here, come to my. Here, I'll pet you over here. Yeah, she's like, why is it so hot out? Why did you make it so hot out? Like, it's my fault, right? So, yeah, she's a 16-year-old cat. So, anyway. So, what I'm getting at is that learning how to deal with people. Okay, us Gen Xers were probably the most sociable human beings in human history. You know what I mean? And we lived through two of the best eras recorded by man, the 1980s and the 1990s. 1980s being the top of the Human Happiness Index and Prosperity Index, followed by the 1920s, followed by the 1990s, right? In the 1990s, you could start to see the cynicism coming in from Gen X as we turned into 20-year-olds and stuff like that. But everything we did was social. Now, okay, so you got men competing in different things. So if you were in the 1800s and you were competing on you had three guys, a rail spike, and three sledgehammers. And if you've ever seen these guys knock those spikes and ting, 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 they can knock like a 4-foot spike in the ground in like 10 seconds. It's unbelievable, right? I tried it once with me and another guy, and it took us about like a couple of minutes to not hit sledgehammers or whatever and get the thing going. If we would have had the third guy there, it took us about 30 or 40 seconds to drive the thing into the ground because it was hard packed ground, right? But that's what it would take to be guys working on it. So you had guys that were working as a team. The only thing they'd be focusing on is driving that rail spike in, right? And the guys who did it the best would get, elevated, what, ting, 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 ting. And you just have teams of guys just driving in spikes, making money off of that. The guys that didn't do physical labor, well, they were competing with their suits. Remember the zoot suit thing? That was basically the Italian mob thing, but and there were certain suits that were respectable, and there were certain suits that were, okay, this guy's one of them guys, right? Mobster or whatever. But that's how they put their status was to have a really nice suit. So if you had a designer suit, you were higher up in the ranks in the 1930s than somebody who was just a peasant boy shining shoes, right? But the best peasant boy shining shoes made the most tips, right? Dealt with the most people. You had to have a good sense of business sense and how to communicate with people. Some people, yes sir, no sir. How's it? Oh yeah, I'll tell you about this guy and whatever. Now, oh hey, did you hear such and such? And then other, yes sir. What would you like, sir? Yeah, and just all things to all people. You know what I mean? But it just a well-rounded, socialized person running a business. Maybe he's a shoe shine boy. Fast forward to, say, the 1990s, just so we don't make this too long. The people that pick up on trends, which is most human beings, they will be trendy. So feminists are trendy, okay? MGTOW is trendy. They're cults, right? And their goals are the same, is to keep men and women from being together. They're black-pilled, right? So the thing is you don't want to deal with those people because neither of them is going to do anything good for you, right? All they're going to do is try to convince you of how you have to stay away from the other person. And they'll insult you, whatever. Like MGTOW, you can't talk to them hardly at all. And say, oh look, here's a flaw in your reasoning. So, oh no, gynocentric system and this, then divorce. Okay, yeah, I get all that, but look at the people that are getting divorced, and if you look at each individual case, you're going to see patterns. Uh, Happy people that marry happy people don't divorce. They're fine. They're death. Till death do part. Oh, but a woman can just leave you at any time. Blah blah blah. Yeah, yeah. But look at that woman. What, like almost every MGTOW story I've heard of the guy, when he explains how his wife just up and left him for no reason, and then you start asking some questions. Suddenly you start to hear that. Okay, well, first off, like JF said, when you could take the hoe off the street, but you can't take the street out of the hoe or whatever, something like. So he learned the lesson about like trying to save the street hoe. It doesn't work. Leopards don't change their spots. So the thing is that it's like you say, well, where do you find a good person if that's what you're getting at? Well, I think you reap a lot of what you sow, but the thing is that you can vet so easily now. So go online, watch some of the manosphere stuff of like the most cringe women. The type we're talking about. Like, no man ain't good enough for me. He has to be in finance, 6'5", blah blah blah, make 500,000 a year minimum. To be able to get with me, and there's a girl living on food stamps or something, right? It's like, yeah. Those guys will be knocking down your door, I'm sure. No matter how good looking a woman would be, like those guys, yeah, those guys, if they're psychopathic, they walk into a room look at all the gold diggers that are in the room, and say, okay, she's the prettiest. Yeah, she could be my live-in whore for the next, and she'll just have to tolerate that I'm going to sleep around on her. Not give her any love or attention, hardly at all. She's just got to look good in public for me, make me look good. Okay, so is that woman really, did she win the grand prize? Yeah, she's got the money and she can, live in the castle or whatever, but no, that's a broken person that found a narcissistic, psychopathic person, and that can be thrown away at any moment, right? Yeah, so she gets to ride a little bit of a nest egg for a little while. So we go back to the 90s. Okay, I'm a young man in the 90s making $4.25 an hour, one of my many low-paying jobs that I had. Again, you're looking at a guy that's had over 100 jobs in his lifetime, never been fired once, and I started during the recession. And even as a Gen Xer, no, Gen X gets the plights of the Gen Z. I can't imagine how difficult it is for Gen Z right now. I hear you guys. You guys have even more bullshit to deal with. I had thousands of doors slammed in my face. You know what I mean? Putting out resumes and stuff like that. So I know about rejection. One thing that Gen X is good at is handling rejection, because we dealt with so much of it. But we dealt with it in a different way, and we turned it into something constructive. We didn't just let every no, like if all the Gen Xers out there just, the first girl told them no, and that's it, I'm never going to ask another woman out again because that was the one, and you're gonna, you'll do that once in your life maybe, and then after that you realize how stupid you were, and it's like, okay, no, there's not just the one. There's a whole bunch of women out there, and same for women. There's not just the one guy for you. Like, it doesn't work like that. Even if you wanted it to work like that, it does not work like that. There are so many people that are compatible with you, whether you're male, female. It really is, you reap what you sow. If you're a woman that's hyper neurotic, really boss bitch, whatever, all that, you're always going to be disappointed. If you're a naturally disappointed with everybody kind of person, you're always going to be disappointed. If you're an easy person to get along with and you find another person that's easy to get along with, you're going to fall for them, whether you're male or female. It's going to happen. And I'm going to make a few points on this too. So we get into the 90s, okay? I'm a young man, okay, making $4.25 an hour. Now, any woman listening to that right now would say, well, that guy was a bum. And I'm like, okay, here's what $4.25 an hour could do during a recession. As a young guy living on multiple friends' couches for probably a good year and a half, right? Till I found an apartment that was cheap enough. I find an apartment. I always did like shared, with buddies or rent a room or something like that. I've always tried to keep my living expenses low so I could afford toys instead, right? Rather than just having a really expensive apartment. But eventually I got to the point where I got an apartment for about $540 a month. Right? It was started out 450 a month, right? So yeah, went half and half with the other people, and then suddenly I had to place myself in this 540 a month, and my wages had went up by that time to like $8 an hour, by this time. So it took me a while to build myself up as a young man from 18 years old to say like early 20s, 22, 23, whatever. But I was making $4.25 an hour. Payday had come. Okay. I grab $40. $40. Go to the Giant Tiger, the dollar store, whatever was available, the Zellers, stuff that's not with us anymore. I'd go in and I'd buy $40 worth of groceries. And what did that? Well, that filled a shopping cart. That filled a modern shopping cart. Picture that thing full to the brim, and just think of the price tag of that. Now, mind you, this was like Mr. Noodle packs, bags of potatoes. You get bags of a 10-pound bag of potatoes for $2, and you get a 50-pound bag of potatoes for like $4 or $5. You know what I mean? So like, and you would never eat 50 pounds of potatoes in a month as a single guy. Like, and that's having a couple of potatoes every night, You'd ration out your potatoes about 10-pound bag would do you the month, right? You could eat them all before the hair grew on them, right? So you get a bunch of loaves of bread. You could get the cheap macaroni for craft dinner for something like 10, 15 cents a box, and Mr. Noodles were, between 5 cents to 25 cents, depending on which brand you got. And it was just, you could do that. And you could even have a couple of pork chops, a couple of things of bologna, a bunch of chicken wieners and whatever. And just, like you could feed yourself on that. You were eating like food, life-sustaining product, as I call it, but it wasn't necessarily great food. But you could make it work. And then, you'd have enough money to go and have, dinner with your friends once in a while at a, like a fast food kind of restaurant type of thing. Maybe you'd go out for a couple of beers, But everything was a social event. Every time you went out, it was always a bunch of people. Get together with some friends. Oh, I brought some other friends from work with me. Oh, well, I brought a couple of friends from my work. There's always 30, 40 people sitting at a table. You know what I mean? People you never met before, and suddenly, everybody knows everybody, right? Let's say, you literally have 10,000 friends. It's crazy, right? And this is during a recession, right? Right now, we're in something much worse than a recession. No, and it's not just the big D. It's been going on really since 2008, and it's every politician. Every politician has failed us around the world by none. There are no good politicians. It's just, think of it more like mob bosses fighting, right? So, young man, early 90s, be over to a friend's place, whatever. A couple of girls come over, whatever, and the guys obviously want to compete, right? Because it's like, hey, she's hot. Well, I'm gonna go out and buy this, right? So the office guys were always the same. Us working guys we were different, but we got along, whatever. We didn't judge each other or anything like that. But it was just, I'd get home from work, take a shower, grab what I had, go there, and that was it. Then the guy would show up, Oakley glasses, right? The girls, oh, I like your glasses, blah, 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 right? By the end of the week, all the trendy guys are wearing the Oakley glasses. I got my Randy Macho Man Savage blue blockers. Okay, I got them for $5, and if you bought a second pair, you got a third pair free. $15 later, sent out my money order. About a month later, just in time for spring, got my freaking blue blockers that were formulated to be able to cut out the UVs and you could see better. They were just really yellow. Everything just looked really yellow. And I remember a friend of mine, he was like, oh, I spent 160 on these Oakley. So it looked like this frame is some sort of fancy name for plastic, whatever it was, right? And put them on. So you got two goon bags looking at the comparing my Randy Macho Man Savage blue blockers to the $160 Oakleys, staring at two idiots staring at the sun to see whose sunglasses were better, right? And it's like, to me, it's like it just didn't matter. It just didn't matter at all. Any woman that would care that I was wearing those sunglasses, like, what I mean? Like, if that's her priorities, and she's obviously not for me. You know what I mean? And the women competed like that as well. Like, they had shoes and makeup and stuff like that. But the women in the 90s, like, if you look at supermodels from the 90s, they were a lot more natural looking than the supermodels now, right? Because, like, the makeup, like, every girl has just so much makeup to the point where, yeah, they get done up and they all look absolutely stunning. And then on top of that, they got filters, right? And we've started to think of that as beauty. Women have started to think of that as beauty, right? And they're unrealistic beauty standards. So people would say, well, Barbie was unrealistic beauty standards, right? And so was He-Man. But the difference is that, okay, unless you're Margaret Robbie, like, yeah, okay, she was drop dead gorgeous. Of course, she could pull off the Barbie thing. She's, absolutely stunner of a woman, right? Most women are probably not going to get to her level. You know what I mean? But a lot of women will get probably about halfway or 3/4 there. You know what I mean? You're going to laugh, but it's like, the trend is that if a woman is wearing makeup, she's attractive. If she's not wearing makeup, then she's plain Jane, whatever. And we can't see the forest for the trees that, okay, here's a woman that's actually a natural beauty. And when you do see a woman that is really beautiful without makeup, it's like, it's so refreshing. And it's just like, I wonder how many women that I looked at this week that were really pretty with the makeup, but would be prettier without it. You know what I mean? Like, if you're really critical and you start judging on that basis, that, like, how, whatever, what you'll find is there's some women that actually, yeah, they got to put the mud putty on the face, or, they hit the, they fell out of the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down. Okay, fine. That happens both men and women. Okay. Glad I don't have that problem. Anyway, so the thing is that we've associated as men that women have to look like porn stars, or they're not beautiful, right? Women have associated the same thing, right? Or they go completely opposite. And they go blue hair, bull ring nose, tattoos all over like, just writing all over the place. Like, it's just, but that, like, the tattooed woman, like, with like the ones that actually did it, like, as influencers, they just jumped on a trend and not thinking about what they're going to look like in 40 years. You know what I mean? But the ones that with the tattoo here and, like, some writing on the ankle, sideways, it's not even, it's not even legible. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, that's a woman that is, experiencing body dysmorphia. It means she's messed up in the head. Like they're what I call anxiety tattoos. And I'm not judging people with tattoos. Some, some people, they just like tattoos. Okay, fine, knock yourself out. But there are some people, like, they do it, and it's just like, like, their body just becomes a collage of just, like, really bad tattoos, and it's just like, it speaks volumes of what kind of mindset. So, well, just, okay, maybe socialize with the person, be nice with them, but proceed with extreme caution, because they probably got a lot of issues you don't want to deal with. So you do that, well, you dodge the bullet, right? Kind of like the guy that smokes weed all the time, and the girl, oh, but he's so cute and everything like that, and she goes out with him, and he's like, all he does is play video games and smoke dope. Well, as soon as he smokes marijuana, maybe you should just keep walking. Socialize and be nice. But don't go after the cool, cute, hippie guy, because all they are stoners. They are the most demotivated people you're ever going to get around. I trust me, I knew enough stoners. It's like, these guys don't fucking do anything but smoke dope. That's all they do, right? They're not bad people, but they're just, if you're looking to win the prize, well, that's a pretty low prize to win, Like, I'm not judging, I'm just saying, don't expect much of it. They're not going to be good home, they're not going to be good providers for the family, so to speak. So, getting back to the Oakley sunglasses. So, one week it's Oakley sunglasses, and suddenly all the trendy people buy it. Okay, fine. Okay, because they're competing. I'm going to look better than everybody else that doesn't have the Oakley sunglasses, but it doesn't work like that, right? And then the week after, it's Tommy Hilfiger. The Tommy Hilfiger phase of the 90s, I am so glad that is over. I remember, okay, guy starts off with a shirt or a hat, right? And then it's the shoes. Then it's the hat, the shirt, the shoes, the pants, the like everything. Tommy like full. It's like a full uniform, right? And okay, it's bad enough when one guy does it, but when you have 40 guys in the bar that are all wearing the exact same fucking thing, just to be Mr. Cool, you realize how funny it is. But when you're in your 20s, you do funny things anyway. You know, you still have a bit of that teenager kind of stupidity, hangover, right? And you do trendy stuff like that. So for me, it was the rock star thing with the silk shirts. That's what we used to do, because I played in bands and stuff like that. So when I went out Mr. Saturday Night, I always wore my silk shirts, and I had, quite a few female friends. And I'm wear your purple one because I'm wearing this, and it'll look good together, but we're not even dating. But when she wants to look good, and whatever. And okay, whatever, I'll wear that one. But like, does she really care? I don't know. You know. But the women, when the little black dress came out, and if you're from the guy that was in your 20s and 90s, you remember that New Year's Eve like it was yesterday. The black dress with the shoulder missing there. I had a friend that she was just such a knockout, right? And I remember we went to New Year's Eve together with a bunch of other people, but she was kind of like my date for the night, so to speak, like a friend date, but it was still whatever. And she was so gorgeous. I was just like, that dress is just crazy. The year after, every girl had it, right? And it was just like, but like, it was just like, she was like, I can't believe how many guys are hitting on me. I said, yeah, well, it's the dress, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. But she was just so feminine, beautiful. You could like fond memories, you know what I mean? And that's the way the women were in the 1990s. You might laugh at the hairdo. The hair was the big thing of the 80s and 90s for women. Face makeup, it was there, right? But it's not like today where their face is just completely caked over. It was there. It was mainly lipstick and eyeshadow, and sometimes they do the like the eyeshadow or the whatever they do, the eye, the eyelashes, whatever. And sometimes they put a little bit of powder on their cheeks, but they still had a very natural look, right? There was still some natural skin there. You know what I mean? Now it's completely different, right? But that's not because of men. That's just because women have taken it that far. If every woman just said boycotted, and this will make you think. If every woman just boycotted makeup, okay, so we're not wearing makeup anymore. We're going au natural. Okay, there's some women. Okay, guys wouldn't be used to it, at first because they're used to looking at the porn star face, right? It's just so done up, right? But then after a while, and I'm gonna use pearly things as an example, not, don't take it the wrong way what I'm gonna say. Okay, you look at her; she's very plain Jane, right? She doesn't wear a lot of makeup. I don't even think she wears any makeup. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't, right? But that'd be a good representation of an 80s, 90s girl, on a Monday to Friday. Like no makeup on the face whatsoever. Saturday night, got the lipstick on, got the, the eyes done up, hair's done up, nice sleek body dress. You look at, like Pearl, okay, she's just an average looking girl. But if you really look at her, okay, she's very athletic, she's tall, she's really tall. Not very plain Jane, right? Neither here nor there. So most guys are going to just walk right by her and not even notice her, right? But the guy that spends like 15 minutes with her a day or like working with her all day or whatever, and starts seeing her, at first he's going to say, wow, she's nothing, because he's so used to seeing women with makeup on. And one day he's going to, oh, she looks really good today. Next thing you know, it's like, she's actually kind of pretty. You know what I mean? Why? Because your mind's going to get used to that, right? And the natural beauty thing is a funny thing, because when you see like a girl that never wears makeup and just, like they tend to be like farm girls and stuff like that. At first you see them and they're just like, okay, they're kind of plain Jane. But the more you look at them, it's like you realize how pretty they actually are. And you're just like, wow, and no makeup, you know what I mean? And it's like, that is so easy to deal with, but it also tells you about their esteem level, right? All women have self-esteem issues without exception. There's no such thing as a competent woman. It's just, I'm not saying that as a misogynist or whatever. I'm just saying you can take the prettiest competent girl in the world, and usually the more overly confident it's a compensation. It's kind of like the guy that's overly masculine to the point of like cartoonishness, right? It's a cope of some sort that they, like, it's, and every guy knows a guy like this, where no matter what you do, there's always that one guy that has to one up it, right? Have you ever seen the movie Zombieland with Woody Harrelson? And that line, it's like one of my favorite lines in the movie. Is like, "Are you one of those guys that have to one up everybody?" No, no, no. I know another guy that's way better than that, way more worse at it than me. And it just sounds like the delivery was so good, like it's like, I don't know, but it's a one up, you know what I mean? And everybody knows that guy, and sometimes you're that guy, and it's like, okay, you're overcompensating, and you're overdoing it, and when you do, usually you figure it out. It's like, okay, being an ass, right? But when you have a plethora of people that are just these influences that are just built upon the most they're like the quote, the Coldplay thing. Hopefully nobody's gonna get caught at a Coldplay thing, but their whole foundation is built on pillars of salt and pillars of sand. It just crumbles because it's so artificial, right? And this goes to character. This goes male or female. So male or females that are of good character, they need not to worry too much. Yes, it's hard to know where to meet people, but the thing is it's right where you're at. If there's a person in front of you that you have an opportunity to talk to, you say good morning, you say hello, good evening, good night, right? You do that. You just start doing those little things. And for guys, make eye contact when you talk with people. If there's an attractive woman, okay, like incels, if you got to learn this. You have to learn this. And this goes back to my teacher, Mr. Mazeros. Yes, I am going to quote Mr. Mazeros a million times because he was 100% right about this. And you have to understand, like Gen X, boomers, and before, they all had male role models and mentors, dads, uncles, cousins, brothers, just buddies, and there was a lot of emphasis on trial and error of go ask the girl out. She might slap you in the face. She might kiss you. You know what I mean? You're going to get rejected. Pick yourself up. Go out, go at it again. Don't be too desperate about it. And don't just, but the thing, advice I get is don't ask a girl out unless you're in it to win it. Don't waste your time. Don't waste her time. Right? But the other thing is what Mr. Mazeros would say would be in the metals class, and he'd ask a question. Oh, tell me something about ferrous metals. This Hungarian guy, right? And we'd be blabbing. Oh, yeah, it's this, it's this, this. Well, I can hear something. Nobody's talking. Nobody's looking at me in the eye. Who's talking to me? And he'd say, make eye contact with people when you talk to them, or you become a weirdo. You, and you. And it's true. If you're a guy, make eye contact with anybody talking to, whether it's a business transaction, family transaction, just niceties with the cashier. You don't have to overtry and try to be everybody's best friend, and you don't have to give them the Charles Manson 1,000-yard stare. It's kind of fun, but they do tend to freak out, so don't do that. But the thing is yes, for men they have to make eye contact. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And the easiest place to start is your local transaction at the store. Don't be looking at your feet. Hi, how are you this morning? Oh, good. Hey, blah, blah, blah. Small talk. Small talk. That's your practice. That's your warm up. That's your. Don't dismiss that as nonsense. Oh, I don't have time for people. Yeah, you are a part of the problem. Those I don't have time to because my IQ is so high just to talk to the simple people. I hear that all the time about really brilliant people, and it's just like, no, your IQ. If you're that dumb, if you have a 170 IQ and you can't have a meaningful discussion with a child, you've learned nothing. You know what I mean? Because the enjoyment you get out of it, like the laughter of children is underrated. Number one, if you can't talk to the simple person and just enjoy and express the simple stuff, how the hell are you ever going to hold a conversation that's Well, I could talk about astrophysics. Yeah, great. Talk to a woman about pottery. Good luck. Well, I'm not interested in that. Yeah, and that's why she's not interested in you. You know what I mean? Like, if you're like, for example, a guy and you live in the countryside and you learn about horses, you're going to learn about it from a girl. You know, some girl's going to tell you all about her horse and they were like that. And I'm not saying be fake it, but just be generally courteous and ask questions about it. And you know what? Gardening. I am like a 2-year-old child around women that are really good with like gardening and stuff. Oh, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? Like, because they'll tell me something that just blows my mind, and I'm like, they knew that and I didn't. You know what I mean? And it's just like, okay, well, next year, yeah, like guys, next year, like the garden big. Yeah, why? Because of the knowledge I got from having a conversation. And trust me, let that stuff occupy your mind, because that takes away the anxiety. That takes away oh, I'm so depressed. But you're depressed because you're only focusing on yourself. When you start looking outwards, I'm not saying neglect yourself, but it's these people that are always in this perpetual self improvement, right? It doesn't work because you're not going after the fundamental thing. And the reason why you're lonely is because you can't communicate. That's what it is. Now, for women, I'm going to give you different advice. So men, eye contact all the time. Start with the cashier. Just be nice. You don't have to carry a 15-minute conversation with just, hi, thank you. Have a nice day. Yeah, you too. Make sure you look at her. And if she's pretty, look at her. Make sure you look at her in the eyes if she's pretty. Because it gives you confidence looking at pretty girls. But number one, it gives you confidence about talking to them. And at some point, it just takes over where you just talk to people like Foghorn Leghorn, where you walk into the room, you own the room because you're just a charismatic person. It builds charisma. It does. You won't even be able to control it. You'll just blab to anybody. You looked at me, hey, how's it going, eh? And they have to respond to you, and you don't have to keep it awkward or whatever and try to keep it going. Just keep it light. Talk to this person, then talk to that person. It's fun, I've never understood why people could do it until you start to understand the mindset of the beatdown of the black pill, that everything's against you. Of course you're always going to be like that. But there's a whole bunch of people that aren't. All these people that are lonely and stuff like that, walking with their heads down, the people that aren't lonely are the ones that are walking with their heads up. Pick up on that. It's telling you something. But for women, if you are not, I can understand in a professional setting where you're trying to convey business or whatever. Okay, that setting, make eye contact. But if you are not interested in the man in any way, do not make eye contact, because subliminally, it's male nature. When guys, especially when they've been neglected for too long, and a woman looks them in the eye and talks to them, they take it as interest, even if there's not. Like it's an automatic response. Men are not even aware of it. It's kind of like like how women have certain hypergamy and stuff like that. Like they're not aware of it. But we're in a society now that we can talk about it because people weren't aware of it. Maybe when you tell a woman, okay, you come off a bit hypergamous, right? No, like, what? What's that? What'd you call me? You know what I mean? And then it's really interesting when you see people who finally get that aha moment of self-reflection, saying, oh shit, I'm the asshole. You know what I mean? And when that happens, that's when the positivity comes up. That's when they learn stuff, and they learn how to measure themselves in a public setting. But they also learn how to turn away from the toxic stuff. So MGTOW, feminism, like women go to these protests, okay, as a trendy thing. And many of those women are going with the idea, okay, of the protest, but a lot of them are going there in hopes that they're going to meet, their male counterpart or whatever, unless they're LGBTQ, whatever. But we won't even, those people they're like the big LGBTQ, MGTOW, feminists, they're all in the same group. Whether they like each other or not is not relevant. They're all the black pill. They're all the what I call the death cult, the suicide gene. I know we got to do a study on this, but in 100 years, maybe 500 years from now, someone's going to say, this guy was onto it. He was telling us that there was something genetically wrong with these people to the point where that they would naturally become nihilistic and just, strip it all away. They like the Enlightenment, strip it all away, deeper meaning till you're left with nothing. Nihilism, right? Uh, every man is a rapist. Every man. These women are basically self-sabotaging, right? The Me Too types, right? The feminists, self-sabotaging. The incels, self-sabotaging. And only they can fix it. We can't fix it for them. You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. That's why, like, when the MGTOW guys jump in the comments on this, it's like they're pointless because their only goal is to make sure that you don't pursue women. Oh, well, it's not that. Yes, it is that. It's exactly what it is. And the women, oh, this guy's a misogynist, blah, 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 blah. Yes, I don't want you either. You know what I mean? The guys like me don't want feminists. We don't want the boss bitch. We're not impressed with your degree. We don't care about it whatsoever. We don't need it. We just don't need it, right? What we are impressed by is the woman that can, again, if you want to see something really sweet, I don't know if I already brought it up in this video or not, but like just go look at like funny wife, funny husband, whatever, and stuff like that, and you're gonna see like happy people. Okay, some of it is a LARP. Yes, there are some people that they're not necessarily on the straight and level about their stuff. I get that, but you can generally tell. Like, again, the guy that there was like the trendy thing, and again, trends, right? Where he saw somebody on TikTok go behind his pregnant wife and lift up her belly when she's like 9 months pregnant, and the wife is just like, like that. And I watched it. I'm just like, that is the sweetest thing ever. And there was just this whole trend, and just look at the relief on the woman's face. Yeah, again, 10, 15 pounds lifted up, that she's been carrying around for 9 months. She's gonna appreciate that, right? But that is connection. That's the Family Nation Future stuff that should be promoted. You know what I mean? And when you see a guy doing that, it is very manly, it's very masculine, but it's very protective of Family Nation Future, right? Even if they don't realize it. And those guys, they're not lonely. You know what I mean? They're like, and that guy, I can guarantee you, that guy feels more masculine in that moment than any other time. A guy that sees his child walk for the first time, he's more masculine in that moment than anything else. Like your Andrew Tates, you can keep him. Andrew Tate is a horrible role model. He is. I don't dislike the man. I don't know the man, but he's not realistic. Like, oh, unless you make $3 million before noon, you're just a loser. And about that guy is the hyper masculine, and there is some good advice he gives. Like, fair is fair. But the thing is he's a bad role model because he should be smart enough to realize that most people aren't going to get the $30 million he got. That's very few people that get that, right? You're not just going to be pull up your bootstraps. Like, it's boomer logic. Just, work harder and you'll get there. It doesn't work that. The field is different. You're competing against totally different circumstances. If you're a young man right now, you're competing against mass immigration of undercut labor to a ridiculous Trans-Pacific Partnership level, right? Yeah. So you have to find fulfillment somewhere else. But what you're going to see is that if you promote the happy people, as Pearl would say, okay, you're going to find some that are going to lose. They're going to split up, whatever, it happens, right? And it might be for bullshit reasons too. Yeah, you're going to find it, but you're going to find for the most of them, they're going to stick together. So what did they get right that the rest of us plebs didn't figure out? Well, they didn't overthink it, number one. They kept their expectations realistic. And if you look at the pie charts of why people get divorced and stuff like that, and I've talked about this a million times, but, half of it of why people, like a lot of people focus on the money side of it, right? Because, money's such a big part of why people get divorced. But then when you really, really analyze it and you start talking to these people that say, well, I got divorced because my husband didn't make enough money. And well, tell us about your husband. Well, he was drunk fucking from Monday to Friday. He'd lose jobs all the time. He'd always spend his paychecks on fucking this, or we're behind in rent. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the fucker being drunk all the time. You know what I mean? Alcohol. I couldn't handle my wife. Why? She was excellent with the kids, but you get home, she just start fucking screaming at me. She, on antidepressants all the time. Blah blah. She was bipolar. Oh, mental health. She'd spend all the money. Blah blah blah. So we broke up. No, you broke up because she was mentally ill. You broke up because he was an alcoholic, or both. Interchangeable, right? And when you start looking at it, 90% of it is character, not material stuff. Like again, I've been following this long enough that you have to be careful about, and as the saying goes, statistics are how you interpret them. Yes, there's a lot of that in there too, but you can see the trend, you can see the pattern. You can find poor people that are happy. You know what I mean? You can find rich people that are happy. You can find poor people that are really miserable as a couple because they just can't make anything work. But it usually comes down to lifestyle problem. You reap what you sow, right? So there's and again, I know people like this. I live around people like this. You know what I mean? Like that. I know like one couple. Yeah, they're both drunks, but they both go out and fish all day, and the husband and wife, they're out and fish till somebody passes out and they just float into shore. You know what I mean? Whether they got a fish on the line or not. They're happy as a clam. Okay, who am I to judge them, right? Other couples, it's like it's family day every day at their house, because they got 8 kids running around, whatever it is. I don't know, lost count, right? But they're always like laughing and happy, and you know what I mean. And it's just like, okay, yeah, but they're poor, But you got the little girl trying to ride the pig, and the boy hanging onto the tail, and their parents are yelling, "Hey, stop that! Leave the pig alone!" You know what I mean? But they're laughing because it's like it's endearing. It's endearing. So how did they get it? Well, they got it because, as the saying goes, you fight where your feet are, but you also socialize where your feet are. So rather than worrying about, oh, well, do I have to join a group? Do I have to do? You just got to talk to people when they're in front of you. Period. And over time, you will just run into people. You'll just make acquaintances. Socialization is harder now. There's no doubt about that because people spend too much time online. But what you will find is when you go to events and stuff like that and get involved in your community a little more, you tend to cross paths with the people that you're more likely to want to cross paths with, right? So if you go to positive events, not necessarily you don't have to go to church if you're not religious. A lot of guys will do that. They'll go to church to see if they can find a wife. They'll find one, but they find out that she's actually really a devoted Christian or whatever, and they're not, and it doesn't work out because they're not as devoted as her because she's looking for an actual Christian husband. And, the other way around, right? So you have to make sure that you can vet people that they're genuine. And when you do, what ends up happening is you're not focused solely on you, and you're not even focused on just my wants and my needs, but the intrigue of the other. It's like, okay, well, here's a girl. Okay, maybe she's not, my checks all my boxes, or the girl, this guy doesn't check all my boxes, but there's an intrigue there. Oh, I didn't know he did this. Oh, I didn't know she did that. Oh, well, now you're a little more attracted because you've learned something, and that discovery is 90% of the attraction. You know what I mean? And a lot of people just don't figure that out. That's why they think they have to do all this really hoop jumping of if you're a guy, you just got to go out and make yourself 6'5" and go into finance and make 500,000. Again, that's like 0.1% of a man out of per million. that is that. Like these women they're saying that as a cope because they know nobody wants them, right? So and what you're hoping for is that you can meet that woman not in disgust and repellence of them, but in the hopes that, okay, they out themselves that easy so that you don't waste any time with them. And like, it's really, there's like a thing, for example, now we can pick on left-wing women all day. It's like low-hanging fruit. That's like clubbing baby seals, you know what I mean? Okay, we know the flaws of the radical feminist and all this. We know all the flaws. But what about the conservative women? I mean, there's a lot of them, and a lot of people are starting to pick this up too. Like these really staunch conservative women that are really angry, Could you imagine living with them? Yeah, like everybody's saying, yeah, imagine living with them? Bitching all the time about nothing's ever good enough? Yeah, that woman's going to try to emasculate you very quickly. You'd have to pull the reins hard back on that one, but maybe she might like that too. You know, you know what I mean? So yeah, they're attractive. They're easy to look at. They're easy to listen to. They're telling telling your talking points, but you're supposed to be hearing those talking points from your buddies, not from a chick. You know what I mean? She's supposed to be talking about her day and the new recipe she found that's just really good. And she's going to try it out. And, oh, and by the way, yeah, we're going to meet such and such for supper. Men build homes, women make a home. And when you understand it like that, we both have a role to play, and it's different for each one. And one is not more important than the other, because without one, you can't have the other. You can't have the family nation future. You can't have the stability, right? But the loneliness epidemic is basically people really drawn back into themselves and just constantly focusing on themselves. Once you get out into community a bit, and I get it for the city people because it is harder, because like, how do you've moved away from your family like 5,000 miles, and then and you're not around anybody, and then you're wondering why you're lonely. I'm not a rocket scientist, but there might be a pattern there. How's everybody back home? Oh, great. Oh, Timmy fell down the well again. Oh, nice. Who got him this time? Like everybody loves those endearing stories from home, right? And you're sitting there far away because it's a better life over here for some reason. But why do I care so much more about the small community at home and what they're doing while I'm out here chasing the big world? And it's like, but I missed that, because that was connection, that was family, nation, future, that was the community, that was the extended family, that's your history, your lineage, that's where you are from. You got connection, and when you have connection, you don't have loneliness. And the thing is you can't meditate this. You have to live it. You can't buy it. You have to live it. You can't read about it and get a 1, 2, 3 step guide to it. You have to just live it. And it's a learning experience that is something that people have to figure out for themselves. What works for me might not work for you. What works for me is just being social. I mean, look, I have 2 neighboring towns that when they see me on the bicycle, they're jamming on the brakes. Hey, you need a ride? Because everybody around knows that I'm looking for a car. They know I'm looking for a 10-speed back wheel for my Tour de France bike. Everybody knows this. Why? The small community. Hundreds of people. It just starts off this small, and then suddenly, this farmer meets this farmer, and everybody's just talking about the guy. That guy you see, that crazy guy you see, cycling beside the truckers because his car's broke down. Yeah, well, he goes from there in the morning to works all day, and he comes back that whole distance and whatever. And it's like, wow, what a character. Maybe I'll get him to, hey, Reg, you want to come and chainsaw some trees for me? I'll come pick you up. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that just breeds into itself the positivity. And then you go there, you cut some trees, and suddenly, oh, hey, did you meet my daughter? I'm kind of hoping that happens, but you know what I mean. But anyway, you're involved in the community. You're not just focusing on yourself and my well-being and all this, and that's where you're all. That's a waste of time. Yes, eat right, exercise, take care of yourself mentally. Don't do too much drugs. Don't do any drugs if you don't need them. Don't drink too much. Try to quit smoking. Whatever vices you have. I got vices. I don't smoke. I don't drink, but I drink Pepsi. Okay, I should quit that. But what I'm also getting at is that you should not be so focused on your self improvement and all that you're just me, 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 me. Everything's revolving around me. Why can't I find it? Why can't I do that? Why can't I? Why can't I? Why can't I? Right? How about you just go out and do? Yoda's advice. There is no try. There is only do or do not. And it's a funny line, but it actually has a lot of meaning to it. It's like, yeah, you either do it or you don't. You know what I mean? And a guy that's secure in his masculinity, like he doesn't have to make $1 million a year to be masculine. He understands that, okay, like, for example, if you compare me to Andrew Tate, most people are going to want to be more like Andrew Tate because he's got $30 million, right? Great. In the apocalypse, most people are going to want to be like me because why? I can grow my own food. I can trap, hunt, do all that stuff. I can fix tractors. I can, fix whippersnippers and cars and whatever once I, have the time to do it. I can, build things. I've built, like almost everywhere I go in the local area, there's something I've worked on. I've built docks, I've built houses, I've built, you know what I mean? And if I don't know how to do it, I learn how to do it. I don't, and this is the difference between Gen Z and Gen X, where Gen Z be like, I don't know how to do that. And, that's it. They big defeat, failure, and they just feel so bad about it. Where Gen X go, I don't know how to do it. I have to learn. Okay, it's got to be done, right? Like it's a different mindset. The boomers were like that too. So you can complain about Gen X and the boomers for certain things, yes. But you could also complain about the millennials and Gen Z. Like we all have our flaws as a group, but I don't. And you have to understand each group was propagandized differently. This is why the boomers are unreachable because they're not tech savvy, right? Some of them are, but most of them aren't. That's why they still think it's 1952, and you can just pull yourself up by the bootstraps if you work hard, right? They really don't get it. They don't live in the same world anymore, right? And they just don't get it. Like they just don't get it. So don't hate on them. There's no point in talking to them because they just don't know. You know what I mean? Gen X, we're tech savvy because we've invented most of it. You know what I mean? Millennials, they've invented most of it. Gen Z, they've really shaped a lot of it. Because they're just so born into it that they just different ideas. So everybody has their role to contribute, but everybody's also got sucker punched by bad governments throughout the man's history, right? There's always been bad governance, right? That's what we're living through now, right? And it's always this handful of psychopaths that think that, every other human being's beneath them and stuff like that. And they get these crazy ideas like communism and capitalism and stuff like that. And they just don't have this idea of family, nation, future, that it's always about GDP numbers, that kind of stuff. And they get really crazy with it because they're so disconnected, right? But when the people are connected, they don't care about the GDP numbers more than the well-being of their local area. And that area tends to thrive when everybody thinks that way. A community will thrive together. You know what I mean? And when a community thrives together, they will also communicate together, and they will also, reach out. So it's not an easy thing, but there's so many easy ways for a guy to vet whether a girl's a nut job or not. Just by, if you're lucky enough, she tells you about, she'll ask you how much money you make first. Okay, tell her the truth. Don't lie. Tell her the truth. See how she reacts. And if she's in disgust, there you go. She saved you a lot of headaches. Say, okay, well, we're not compatible. Let's, have a nice day. Reject them. Girl, okay, what's your aspirations in life? I want a family and children. Are you going to be able to do that? Well, I just want to, live in the now and blah, blah. Yeah, that guy, yeah, you just keep walking. He's not for you. Like people will out themselves. And when you look at the people that stay together versus the people that get divorced and break up and all that stuff, the red flags are right on day one. You know what I mean? 90% of the time. 99% of the time, it's yes, this person showed you who they were long before, and then you tolerated it, and then you got suckered by it, and then now you are in where you're at. But if you didn't fall for it, you say, okay, well, they're a nice person, whatever, but they're not for me. Okay, I'm gonna, but somebody, okay, this guy's a little rough around the edges, but he's potential. This girl, she's okay, she's not perfect, but I can work with that. You're going to have to compromise a little bit. The boomers got that part right. It's just like almost every boomer you talk to, like the husband has nothing in common with the wife, like for hobbies and stuff like that. Their main goal was to get together and have families, right? Family, nation, future. But they went at the beginning of the nuclear family from the extended family, right? And it's been the extended family is what we have to get back to, not the nuclear family, because the extended family leads to the big communities, to the family, nation, future stuff. Anyway, I'm just going to pause it there for now, because I got to go out and water my chickens, stuff like that. Anyway, there we go.